Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamani Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanamakhilādharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye Arthatopyadvayanandan Ati Tadvaita Bhanatah Guruna Radhya Vedanta Saram Vakshe Yathamati. Hari Om. We started our journey in Vedanta Saar with the first chapter, where we saw Adhikari, entire Sadhana Chatushtaya, Anubandha Chatushtaya, and Guru Upasatti. What are the fourfold aspects of any text that will connect us with a text? Under that, we saw Sadhana Chatushtaya part also, different types of karmas, Shama, Dama, all of that we saw under Sadhana Chatushtaya. And that student approached a teacher. That portion also was called as Guru Upasatti. Then that led us into the second chapter, because teacher taught by Adhyaropa and Apavada. So the entire second chapter was Adhyaropa. How in this one pure consciousness, ignorance is getting superimposed. And the moment you have ignorance as a conditioning, consciousness along with ignorance becomes conditioned consciousness. So you have the conditioning, conditioned consciousness, and unconditioned consciousness. And from Ajnanam, there were several other conditionings which were also elaborated. That formed our second chapter. Third chapter was Vishesha Adhyaropa. Vishesha Adhyaropa included what are the erroneous notions about I according to different schools of thoughts. Visheshata was they thought a lot, thought about nature of Aham in several ways, but still concluded something other than the Shuddha Chaitanya as Aham. That was Vishesha Adhyaropa. Fourth chapter was Apavada. Apavada means having understood that from this pure consciousness, this entire creation which is appearing, that is only Vivarta. Vivarta, it is appearing differently without actually that substratum undergoing any change. Just like the snake appears, rope appears as snake, rope without undergoing any change appears as snake. In that way, consciousness without undergoing any change appeared as this entire prapancha. That is why we can do laya prakriya, dissolve one thing into the another, dissolve the effect into its immediate cause, that effect into its immediate cause, and finally dissolve entire creation. What remains is Shuddha Chaitanya. As part of that Apavada only, we were discussing Mahavakya. If you look at your index, you'll get a nice flow. In the book, if you just come to the contents page, what I just summarized, all the topics will come there. Chapter 1 is Anubandha Chatushtaya, Sadhana Chatushtaya and Guru Upasatti. Chapter 2 was Adhyaropa. Chapter 3 is Vishesha Adhyaropa. And now 4th chapter, we have started Apavada. We saw the portion of dissolving effect into the cause. That portion we saw, Laya Prakriya we saw. Then we discussed how to understand the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. For us to come to that final understanding of Upanishads, clear understanding of Mahavakya is very essential. Even if we keep repeating Mahavakya, that repetition by itself doesn't give moksha. Because moksha is not something which is created out of bhavana. Bhavana means I feel that I am Brahman. That is why I think that I am mukta. Or I feel that Jagat is mithya. That bhavana does not help. It's only through clear vichara one can get this understanding. So in Mahavakya we said, Akhandartha Bodha is established in the seeker's mind by evaluating Mahavakya in 3 different ways. 3 steps are there. If we analyze Mahavakya in that way, we'll be able to come and establish ourselves in this pure consciousness, Shuddha Chaitanya. The first one was within the words itself. We concluded that it is pointing out to the same thing, not similar thing. Jiva is also consciousness and Ishvara is also consciousness. Through lot of sadhana, Jiva will purify himself and then become that consciousness. And he is free because he is similar to Ishvara's consciousness. Although there might be little difference, but he is very close. We say, no, there are no 2 consciousnesses to begin with. There is only one Chaitanya that is meant by the word Samana Adhikarana. Same locus is being indicated by Tat Tvam Asi. Then we went into Visheshana Vishesha Bhava. Can one become adjective for the another, second become adjective for the first? We said, no, that's not possible. Then we went into third one, which is Bhagatyaga. Lakshya Lakshana Bhava or Bhagatyaga, where conditionings were dropped from both the entities. Because contradiction came only in conditioning. As far as Chaitanya is concerned, there was no contradiction. So he is able to let go of all the conditionings with strong conviction. That is why we discussed 2 aspects of Mahavakya Vichara. One is Vichara on paper, and another is whenever situations come in life, looking at those situations from Jnana standpoint. Whatever transactionally has to be done, that sadhaka will do it only to that aspect. Not with this idea that if I change something in upadhi, it is going to solve things permanently. Swami Shivananda Maharaj has written an article on Mahavakya. And there he says, thinking about Vishaya and thinking about Brahma cannot go together. The portion we are going to see today, he is writing in that context. He says Brahmakara Vritti and Vishayakara Vritti. Both cannot coexist simultaneously. Either it will be Vishayakara or it will be Brahmakara. Means how should we understand this statement? That we cannot always hold on to Brahmakara Vritti 24/7. That's also impractical, right? You have so many other things to do. You cannot say, I just want Brahmakara Vritti all the time. Actually, Vedanta doesn't say that as a solution also. Today we will see that part. Point is not to hold that Vritti forever. It is to create our mind in such a way that Brahmakara Vritti can take place very well. And once it has taken roots, it can do its work very well. That is a whole part of this sadhana. That Brahmakara Vritti, if one has gained it through a lot of Shravanam, careful study and everything, one should not let go of it because of Vyavahara. Something in transactional world became so bothering that he let go of Brahmakara Vritti for Vishayakara Vritti. In that way, one can look at it. So now Tattvamasi Mahavakya Vichara is done. There were 4 Mahavakyas, right? Tattvamasi was Upadesha Vakya. Upadesha Vakya, the teacher instructed the student by Tattvamasi. Now the student listens to this and carefully reflects on it. Carefully reflects on it. And his conviction is, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahma. And with that clear knowledge, all his dukkha nivritti is ever established. He had come to the teacher with Durvara Samsara Davagni Taptam. He had lot of samsara, lot of problems. Now the teacher has said, you are that Brahma, Tattvamasi. And he thought about it and got this conviction, Aham Brahmasmi. He doesn't repeat it back. Teacher, you are Brahma. He says, no, I am Brahma. And with that, my dukkha nivritti has happened 100%. Now this portion, which is going to come next, from 170 to 180, it's a very beautiful elaboration on how does knowledge take place. How does Brahmakara Vritti work, and how it will remove ignorance in that jiva. Now the important part of this whole discussion is, it says any ignorance which is there will go through vritti only. Or any ignorance which is there, it will go through knowledge only. Any knowledge that takes place in this world will take place in intellect only. Either it is of objects outside or it is of Brahma. Knowledge will always take place in intellect. Sometimes you hear this phrase, right? I have intellectual knowledge, but no experiential knowledge. So Vedanta will question and say, any knowledge will take place in the intellect only. There is nothing called as non-intellectual knowledge. I mean, what we are trying to say there is, I know that I am Brahman, but I don't see dukkha nivritti happening in life. That is what a sadhaka could mean when they say, I have only intellectual knowledge, but no experiential knowledge. But over here, it's very nicely presented how Brahmakara Vritti works. What is the difference between other thoughts, which removes ignorance about worldly things, and how is that Vritti different from Brahmakara Vritti? Okay, so that is going to be the main topic, very helpful in sadhana. It will help us in staying focused. It could happen that sadhaka does several years of Vedanta sadhana, but still thinks goal is far to be reached. He says it could be far, but it is only in the sense of Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana means even after knowing that I am Brahma, one keeps falling back to older habits, erroneous notions. There is no gap in his knowledge. And if somebody does Shravanam for several years, sincerely attends regular satsang, he said there is no way that this person will not understand that I am not Brahma. Or in other words, I am Brahma. This should become clear if somebody has done thorough Shravanam. There is no way that they will not get this point. But even after that, erroneous notions remain, because of which this person feels Vedanta has not worked. Means when a situation comes, he suddenly slips into I am a jiva. I am an experiencer. I am a doer. So that part is part of Viparit Bhavana. One cannot say that knowledge has not taken place. Knowledge has taken place. What that sadhaka needs is more nididhyasanam, more meditation. Of course, Shravanam and Mananam will keep going on, and that part will be separately addressed in Vedanta Saar. But the main point was, this portion will help us appreciate how Vritti works. Brahmakara Vritti, how does it work? And when we say Jnanam gives moksha right away, Jnanam gives moksha right away, Sakshat it is, what does it mean? All those facets will become clear. Let us just see the overall summary first before we get into the verses, just like we did for other Mahavakya Vichara. For this one also, let's try to do that. Then the verses become very easy. You can connect the dots easily. Knowledge is always needed to remove ignorance. Knowledge is needed to remove ignorance. There are two types of ignorance which our rishis have separated into. One is called as Mula Vidya. Moola Avidya it is, or you can say Mula Avidya. That ignorance which is about primordial entity, pure consciousness. Ignorance about Atma, ignorance about my own true nature, that is called as Moola Vidya. Now this ignorance is so powerful. Ignorance, in other words, Maya. It is so powerful. It has Avarana Shakti and it has Vikshepa Shakti. One Mahatma Ji would say, look at the power of this Maya. Just not knowing I am Brahma, see what it has created. Vikshepa Shaktir Lingadi Brahmandantam Jagat Srujet. Starting from this subtle body, all the way until Brahmandas, this Vikshepa Shakti has projected. Now, ignorance about anything in this projection, ignorance about anything in this world, that ignorance is called as Tula Vidya. Tula Vidya. Now, it includes all types of ignorance about the world outside. For example, if I say I'm ignorant of astronomy, I'm ignorant of astronomy. Now, that is falling under Tula Vidya. Because it is not about Aham. It is not about consciousness. It is about something which falls under the effects of this Vikshepa Shakti of Maya. But if I say, I am ignorant about my nature as unborn, I feel that I am born, that avidya is called as Moola Vidya. Okay, so I'll give you some examples. You tell me whether it is Moola Vidya or Tula Vidya. Moola Vidya is 1, Tula Vidya is 2. Online, you can raise your hand, okay? I am ignorant about music. Moola Vidya or Tula Vidya? You don't have to raise your hand like that. You just have to raise it on the screen. Okay, good. Tula Vidya. I am ignorant about physics. Tula Vidya. ignorant about cooking, ignorant about my nature as akarta. Moola Vidya, very good. I am a doer of actions, that is result of Moola Vidya. I am an experiencer. This is result of Moola Vidya or Tula Vidya. Moola Vidya. All the erroneous notions we have about Aham, everything is a result of Moola Vidya. I am born, I am doer, I am experiencer. I need to get happiness from this world. All of them are Sumadhura Phala of Moola Vidya. Sweet fruits, not that sweet, it's very bitter. But those are the results of Moola Vidya. If we appreciate this much, we will understand how other than Vedanta, nothing can remove this Moola Vidya. Because the subject matter is very different. If I study music, I will get knowledge of music. If I study astronomy, I will get knowledge of astronomy. If I study any other science, physics, I will get knowledge of that. But ignorance about my nature as karta, my nature as bhokta, my nature as unborn, or ignorance about my nature as being born, that will not be removed. Only Vedanta Jnanam, in particular Mahavakya Jnanam, that will remove this Moola Vidya. So this is the main difference to begin with, that there are two different types of avidya. One is called as Tula Vidya, which is about the world outside. Another is called as Moola Vidya, which is about me, myself. So Brahma Jnanam is to remove Moola Vidya. Brahmakara Vritti, the main purpose is to remove Moola Vidya. So you can make a mapping in your mind or wherever. What is the difference between worldly knowledge and Vedantic knowledge? In Shastra, it is Upanishad, it is said Paravidya and Aparavidya. Paravidya means Vedantic knowledge. Brahmakara Vritti. Aparavidya means worldly knowledge. The difference between them is Paravidya will reveal nature of Atma and it will remove this individuality. Aparavidya will reveal nature of the world. Whatever ignorance I have, not essential nature of the world. It will just remove ignorance about the effects. I did not know some object, now I know that object. But it will not remove that notion of finitude in me. So samsara will still remain even by having lot of Tula Vidya. Tula Vidya, I said. Tula Avidya also, you can say. Tula Avidya is the problem. But if you get lot of knowledge about that particular thing and remove that Tula Vidya, still samsara will remain. But over here, Brahma Vidya, it will come and remove this ahankara itself. That is the main difference of Brahma Vidya and all other forms of knowledge. Now this, we have appreciated the two types of avidya, Moola Vidya and Tula Vidya. How does knowledge takes place? How does knowledge take place in both of them? How does Brahmakara Vritti work in the case of removing Moola Vidya? And how does Vishayakara Vritti work in removing Tula Vidya? That we can appreciate now. Let's see an example first, then this process will become easier. Let us say there is a pot in a dark room and there is a blanket covering that pot. Pot is there, blanket is there, and there is a dark room. So for me to know that pot, what do I have to do? I have to go into the room, remove the blanket, step 1, and then turn on the light. Step 2 is needed. Only when both steps are accomplished, I can see that pot. Here also, this is an example. Now in the case of Tula Vidya, objects of the world outside, if I have to get knowledge of that object, then I need a thought which takes the form of that object. A thought is needed which takes the form of that object. So for example, if I need to know an object, let's say a pot, so mind has to become of the form of that pot. It is called as Ghata Akara Vritti. If I need to know a chair, mind has to become of the form of a chair. So it is called as Chair Akara Vritti. We don't say this consciously, but this is how our mind is perceiving things. So ignorance about a thing is, to remove that, the first step which is needed is a thought of that thing. Vritti is needed. And clearer the vritti, greater is the clarity of knowledge. If there are doubts, if that vritti has not taken place fully, or if I'm just seeing part of that chair, I don't see the whole chair. To the extent there are limitations in the vritti, to that extent there are limitations in my knowledge. Now apply this for everything. If you say, who is a good musician? Who can have the precise vritti of that swara? Little bit up and down, he'll be off from that. And this is what makes the difference between two musicians, the ability of that vritti to form, and of course to express it back also, to work with it, create more things. That is also there, but the main part is, has that vritti formed or not? So this is the first step. This step is similar to removing the blanket. Pot was there, you removed the blanket. In the same way, to know any object in the world, thought has to come and remove ignorance about that particular object. But just removing the blanket was not sufficient, right? You had to turn on the light. So here also, vritti by itself removes the ignorance of that thing. But another entity is needed to say this statement that I know this thing now. Vritti goes and just makes us understand this, that this is a pot. Ayam ghataha. And there is a reflection of consciousness in that vritti, which illumines that object and says, I know the pot. Aham ghatam janami. Vritti went and brought this statement for us, Ayam ghataha. I did not know the pot. Now I say, this is a pot. But there is another entity called as reflected consciousness, or Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa, all of you are familiar with, right? Pure consciousness, whenever there is a conditioning, that consciousness gets naturally reflected in that conditioning. So if vritti, thought is the conditioning, there is consciousness reflecting in that thought. That reflected consciousness will claim for us different objects, different knowledge, and say, I know that pot. They say, this is a swara. But Chidabhasa says, I know this swara. So there is owning up happening of every knowledge in this world, every perception in this world, by these two entities working together. Vritti goes and removes ignorance. Chidabhasa comes and owns it up. Vritti's job is to say, I am ghataha, I am pataha. And Chidabhasa's role is to say, Aham ghatam janami. I know this pot, I know this cloth, and so on. Now this is for Tula Vidya. About material world, this is how knowledge takes place. What about Brahma? When Moola Vidya is removed, how does Brahmakara Vritti work here? So for this, we have to take another example. Similar one. There is a dark room. But instead of pot, you have an LED lamp. Okay, LED lamp is there, and that is covered by a blanket. Now to know that lamp, know that object, what do I have to do? Step 1, I have to remove the blanket. Step 2, do I need to go and turn on the light? No. This light is having light of its own. I don't need to have any other light to illumine this light. First case, the object was pot. Second case, the object is something which has light of its own. So only removing the blanket is sufficient. I don't need to bring another light to illuminate. So over here, in the case of Brahma, in this entire creation, the only entity which is Swayam Prakasha, which has knowledge of its own, which has the ability to know, that is the Shuddha Chaitanya. Pure consciousness, that is the only entity in this whole creation which has light of its own. Swayam Jyoti it has light of its own. But because it is self-illuminating, it is Swayam Jyoti, doesn't mean naturally ignorance will go away. Because somebody might say, right, if it is Swayam Jyoti, then why couldn't it dispel ignorance? That's a different discussion. But the main point is, both can coexist. It will not go away on its own. Ignorance is also there, and Swayam Jyoti Brahma is also there. Or Swayam Jyoti Chaitanya is also there. To remove that Moola Vidya, one needs a Vritti. Just like to remove Tula Vidya, we needed Vritti. To remove ignorance of anything outside, we needed a thought. To remove this Moola Vidya also, we need a thought. And that thought is called as Brahmakara Vritti. Because the object is Brahma. If object is Ghata, that Vritti was called as Ghatakara Vritti. It removes ignorance of Ghata. If object is some other thing, it is that Akara Vritti. If the object is Brahma, it is removing ignorance of Brahma. That Vritti is called as Brahmakara Vritti. So no matter who that person is, to remove ignorance, this Vritti is always required. Because Ajnanam is the problem. Ajnanam will go through Jnanam, and Jnanam requires this Vritti. So step number 1 of removing the blanket, that is this Vritti which comes and removes ignorance about all other things. That I am Karta, I am Bhokta, I am born, I will die. So Brahmakara Vritti through Bhagatyaga. Brahmakara Vritti means Mahavakya. It is not another Vritti. Tattvamasi understood is Brahmakara Vritti. Aham Brahmasmi understood correctly is Brahmakara Vritti. So what it is really doing is, it is removing all the conditionings from this Aham. And when it removes all this conditioning, that is when it is revealing the nature of Brahma. So all the erroneous notions which are there in Upadhis, in Bhagatyaga, they are removed. So I am mind is an erroneous notion. So Bhagatyaga done from Tvam-pada, that is how it is removing all the conditionings. But now comes the second step. The question is, do we need the second step or not? What is the second step in that example? Turning on the light. Do we need Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness, to illumine pure consciousness? Just like in the other case, we did not need another light to illumine that LED lamp. Over here also, Chidabhasa need not go and illumine pure consciousness. First of all, Chidabhasa is getting its existence from pure consciousness. It is able to illumine because of pure consciousness. It does not need to illumine the source. Outside world, Chidabhasa can illumine. Consciousness, Chidabhasa need not illumine. It is just like saying, moonlight can illumine lot of things in the dark. But when sun rises, to illumine the sun, you don't need moonlight. Because moon doesn't have its own light. Right? It is borrowing from the sun only. See, there are deeper implications of this. It is not only a technical way of looking at whether we need reflected consciousness or we don't need reflected consciousness. Whenever reflected consciousness is there, what was its role? To claim that I know something. There was a pot. Vritti came and removed ignorance about the pot. Chidabhasa claimed, I know this pot. Now for Brahma, Vritti came and removed ignorance about Brahma. If you say, I need Chidabhasa, what would be the statement? I know Brahma. So in Vedanta it is said, knowing Brahman is always as aparoksha. Puja Guruji's statement, right? Knowing the truth is being the truth. Knowing Brahma is being Brahma. So that statement will be erroneous. I know Brahma. Statement should be, I am Brahma. Even that statement is not needed, actually speaking. It is only to remove whatever erroneous things we have included in Aham. This is why the teacher in Kenopanishad, he says, Yadi manyase suveda iti, dabhram evapi nonam. He is telling the student, if you think that you have known Brahman very well, that means your understanding is limited. There is a chance that one has objectified Brahman and thinks that Brahman to be different from oneself. So this was that discussion. So technically, this Vritti going and enveloping that object is called as Vritti Vyapti. And the reflected consciousness illumining that object is called as Phala Vyapti. Vritti going and enveloping that object is Vritti Vyapti. The reflected consciousness illumining is called as Phala Vyapti. Okay, so this was just a summary until this point. Now, a few more things will keep coming now. Somebody might have a question. Why are we discussing all this? What is the main point of discussing Vritti Vyapti, Phala Vyapti, Moola Vidya, Tula Vidya, how knowledge takes place? You see, there are some Upanishad mantras which, if we don't appreciate this point, they will look to be contradictory. In one place it is said, Manasa eva idam aptavyam. Through the mind alone, this truth has to be recognized. Drushyate tu agraya buddhya. Sukshmaya sukshmadarshibi. The one who has very single-pointed mind, very subtle mind, that person will know. On the other hand, it is said, Yan manasa na manute. Through the mind, this truth cannot be known. Yato vacho nivartante. It is that from which all means of knowing they have returned back. So there is apparent contradiction in these Upanishad mantras. One set of mantras say, Truth is known through the mind. Another set says, one cannot use the mind to know this truth. So this is resolved through this analysis of Vritti Vyapti and Phala Vyapti. So when we say mind is needed for knowing Brahman, what we say is Adhikari is needed in whom this Akhandakara Vritti can take place. Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. After several janmas, if somebody has that intense desire for moksha and somebody who has done Shravanam, in that sadhaka, this Chitta Vritti, Akhandakara Vritti will rise. I am not this conditioned entity. I am that pure consciousness. For this, mind is only needed. And purity of mind is needed, sadhana is needed, everything is needed. But knowledge is of such a nature, this person does not claim it and say, I know Brahma. So Phala Vyapti is not needed. Phala Vyapti is not needed. Because I am Brahman to begin with. Even when I was ignorant, I was still the same Brahman. It is not that after knowledge I have become Brahman. Puja Guruji in Vedanta Ramanam, when he was explaining this Vritti Vyapti, Phala Vyapti, he made a very beautiful statement. Guruji said, the desire to be experiencer of Brahma, the desire to experience Brahma is saying as though I am seeking Phala Vyapti. Phala Vyapti in practical terms. Having this desire to experience Brahma is saying that Phala Vyapti is needed. Right? Phala Vyapti is needed only for objects of the world outside which don't have light of their own. They don't illumine on their own. It is consciousness which is illumining them. And consciousness cannot directly illumine them. It has to go through reflected consciousness only. Reflected consciousness will illumine the world outside. But to know Brahma, you don't need another light. Okay, so that is the reason why we are discussing this part of Vritti Vyapti, Phala Vyapti, and so on. Should we go to the verse, or can we see a few more summary points? Let's go to the verse. I think all of you might be wondering, where are we discussing all these points from? They're all from the text only. Huh? Now the verses will become clearer once we get this. Okay. 170. Athadhuna aham brahmasmi iti anubhava vakyarthah varnyate. Athadhuna. Atha word refers to verse number 1 to verse number 169. After doing all the preparation, after doing Tat Pada Vichara, Tvam Pada Vichara, Mahavakya Vichara, or rather after having heard Tattvamasi clearly, now we are doing Vichara of Aham Brahmasmi. Put it other way also. Aham Brahmasmi Vichara cannot start without hearing Tattvamasi clearly. Meaning, without doing Padartha Shodhanam, Tatpada, Tvampada, one cannot do justice to this inquiry of Aham Brahmasmi. Having done that, he says, now we are going to elaborate what is this Mahavakya Aham Brahmasmi. Evam acharyena adhyaropa apavada purassaram tattvam padarthau shodhayitva vakyena akhandarthah अखंडार्थे अवबोधिते अधिकारिणः अहम नित्य शुद्ध बुद्ध मुक्त सत्य स्वभाव परमानंद अनंत अद्वयम ब्रह्म अस्मि इति अखंडाकार अखंडाकाराकारिता चित्तवृत्तिः उदेति अखंड आकाराकारिता आकाराकारिता it is. एवं आचार्येण, in this way by acharya, by first elaborating adhyaropa and apavada. Purasara means in the beginning. In the beginning do this and later on do something else. So that is the meaning of the word purasaram. Another word for purasaram is purvakam. Like for example you say shanti purvak kaam kijiye. Means bring shanti first, calmness in the mind first, and then only do your work. So here he is saying, before going to Tattvamasi, he said Adhyaropa Apavada was explained in the beginning. Tattvam padartho shodayitva. Tatpada was thoroughly analyzed. Shodhanam means, one meaning was to do research. Right? Shodhana samsthanam we say. Means to analyze every word very precisely. At the same time, Shodhanam means to purify. Remove those things which are not really belonging to it and come up with that pure thing. Example we had seen was like an ore. Right? What is the Shodhanam of a gold ore? Whatever impurities are there, they are left behind and that gold is remaining. So like this in Tatpada and Tvampada, Shodhanam means I have understood what is Upadhi part, what is Upahita part, and what is Anupahita part. What I should keep and what I should let go. Without that, Bhagatyaga we cannot do. Which Bhaga I should let go, which Bhaga I should keep, that part should be clear in the beginning. Shodhayitva Vakyena, Mahavakyena, Akhandartha, Akhandarthe Avabhudite, Adhikarinaha, that Adhikari, who has been instructed by this Akhandartha Vakya. What was the statement he was given? Tat Tvam Asi. Now he has gone, reflected. This is the expression of that same statement, Tattvam Asi. Applied Vedanta is this. What is that? Tattvam Asi was the Vakya. His understanding is Aham Nitya. I am Nitya. Meaning he is letting go of any anityata which can be there in Aham. What is the first reason because of which we feel we are anitya? Physical body. Right? I feel I was born at some time and I'm going to perish at some time. So he heard Tattvamasi Mahavakya, he did Bhagatyaga, came to this understanding, I am Nitya. Aham Nityaha. Second is Aham Shuddha. So what should we think? What are those things he has let go of because of which Ashuddhi could have been thought about in oneself? One main thing about Ashuddhi is avidya. Ignorance is there in me. All raga dveshas are there in me. Or whatever other Ashuddhis are there. He has worked on them at sadhana level. Adhikari he is. At sadhana level, he has removed all raga dveshas to the best possible extent. But now he has removed that antakarana itself, which is having that raga dvesha. Removed means what? He has understood this is not who I am. I am that Nitya Shuddha Vastu. At the same time, he says I am Nitya Buddha. Means I am not inert. I am that pure consciousness. Bondage can be assumed because of, again, mind, limitations, whatever limitations are in conditioning. He says, I am Nitya Muktaha. I am ever free. Now, this is his Mananam and this is his Tapasya also. These are all indicators of Jnana Tapas. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, Bahavo Jnana Tapasa. Jnana Tapas means this. In the light of knowledge, he is looking at each and every experience. At any point, if he feels bound, he says, where is this bondage coming from? Where is this disappointment coming from? Where is dukkham coming from? And he recognizes that this dukkham is coming from some upadhi, which he is not. This vichara is unavoidable for jnana nishtha. Jnana nishtha means establishing in knowledge. This is looking at every paristhiti, every anubhava from the standpoint of knowledge. In Ramcharitmanas, how this part is explained, if we get time, we will see that today. Okay, same thing, Vedantic idea is presented in a very beautiful metaphor. Nitya Mukta, and then I am Satya Swabhava. Now, whenever somebody removes all these conditionings, they can end up in void. Nothing is there. He says, no, I am Satya Swabhava. I am that existence which is lending existence to this whole creation. But that I should land on pure consciousness. If it lands on this jiva physical body, then these statements look to be very egotistic statements. I am eternal, I am the substratum, I lend existence to creation. That's what a proud person says. You are also saying the same thing. But this is all from Chaitanya standpoint. Having done Bhagatyaga, where has he reached? That is shown in this particular verse. Then Paramananda Ananta. So Paramananda and Ananta, they are actually the same things. Having understood himself to be infinite, he is abiding in his own nature as Ananda. Now, this definition of Ananda, we should put forth effort to appreciate. Generally, the Ananda we are familiar with is something which comes in time and goes in time, or which comes because of some reason. Right? Sometimes people say, you look happy. What is the reason? So, and there is no harm in saying that, because that is the notion we have about Ananda. It has to come because of some reason. It will come at some time, stay for some time, and probably go away at some time. Vedanta says there is an absolute source for that Ananda, which does not come and go. That is why it is called as Paramananda. This Ananda is that which doesn't come and go. It is understood through that knowledge by which we remove all finitude from Aham. At the same time, understanding that this finitude is mithya. See, in deep sleep also we get that glimpse of that Ananda, where there is no Vishaya, there is no other object, no experience is happening of world outside. But still we get absolute bliss. But what is the limitation in that kind of bliss? Ignorance is still there. It's just like turning off the lights. You think that all objects have disappeared. He says, no, the moment light is turned on, you go into Jagrata Avastha, the world becomes real. Jivan Mukta is somebody who can enter Jagrata Avastha with this firm conviction that Jagat is mithya. So in deep sleep, he was enjoying that Ananda because of non-perception. In waking, he enjoys that Ananda because of knowledge. Right? He knows that I am this Brahma and Jagat is only an appearance in me. There are different facets, of this Jagat Mithyatva also. one should not get afraid of this thinking. It has nothing to do with whether our duties will get affected, whether we'll start doing things differently. He says, no, we'll be free from sorrow. That situation which looked so bothering, so pressing, even if this thought we can appreciate that this is not absolute. And for this, we have to see our own life 10 years before. That situation which looks so real, today it looks like a dream. 12th standard exam. It was so real at that time. World might be mithya. This exam is real. So much of, pressure is there, tension is there. But now when we look back, we wonder whether we answered that exam or not. Right? So this is the power of Jagat Mithyatva Bodha. Jagat Mithyatva knowledge. It has nothing to do with doing things differently, dharma getting affected. All of that is practiced at Vyavaharik level. But in conviction, this person gets a new support now. How to let go of things, right? We sometimes think about this. Vedantic solution is by knowing that they are mithya. And this thought flow, it will come in Lakshman Gita. Tomorrow's session, tomorrow's session. It will come in Lakshman Gita. Karma Yoga part is described first. Karma part is described. Lakshmanji says, let go of situations on the strength of karma. Because if karmas are good, situations are taken care of. But second solution is, let go of situations on the strength of this knowledge that it is mithya. Moha nisa saba sova nihara, dekhiya sapna aneka prakara. He says we are sleeping to that absolute truth and thinking this paristhiti to be absolutely real. That's why we are seeing different dreams. Different projections are happening. The one who is able to wake up, that is this person. Paramananda ananta advayam Brahma asmi iti. I am that Brahma. This akhandakara karita chitta vritti udeti. This vritti which is revealing that akhanda vastu. That is why it is called as akhandakara vritti. It doesn't have akara like a big vritti. You will say ghata has got ghatakara vritti. So akhandakara has to have akhanda vritti, akhanda akara vritti. Not in that sense, because it is revealing vastu which is akhanda. That is why it is called as akhandakara akara vritti. Chitta vritti udeti. But we should never forget the previous word. Adhikarinaha chitta vritti udeti. In that adhikari, this chitta vritti will rise. If that adhikari is very chanchala, keeps thinking about several things, or did not do shravanam thoroughly, sadhana chatushtaya, all those things we should see. If anything was lacking in that adhikari, chitta vritti na udeti. Chitta vritti na udeti. But once it has risen, then it will do its work. Now the same portion of this, whatever we saw today, right? Adhikarinaha chitta vritti udeti. Go Swami has given a beautiful metaphor called as Jnana Deepa Prakaranam. He says, between reality, the pure consciousness, and the false mithya jagat, there is a knot which has been formed. Inside also there is a knot. Outside also there is a knot. Jada chetanahi granthi parijayi. I am this pure consciousness and ahankara is jada. Antakarna is jada. But God knows how there is a knot which is formed between consciousness and ahankara. Outside world is inert. It is appearing in pure consciousness. But there is a mix-up happening between name and form and pure consciousness. Now you will say, how can such a knot be possible? Vedanta says, or Go Swami says, I am also saying the same thing. How can such a knot be possible? But it has happened and it is so strong that you cannot untie that knot. Jadapi mrusha chutata katinai. Although it is false, it is mithya, but to remove this knot is very, very difficult. He says, I'll tell you a process. For this knot, you have to bring a flame and keep it below this knot and snap it open. Oh, how will I get a flame? He says, there is a long journey. Bring a cow first. From that cow, you have to get milk. That milk you have to boil. After having boiled, you have to cool down that milk. Then put culture. Make yogurt. Then churn that yogurt. Get butter. Okay, then make ghee out of it. That ghee you put in that lamp and light that lamp and put that lamp below this knot. Goswami is a master in metaphors. You see how beautiful. On Jnanadipa Prakaranam, we can discuss for 7 days. That deep it is. But you see the metaphor now. He says that cow which is there is Shraddha. Satvika Shraddha, Dhenu Suhai. Pure Shraddha that whatever Vedanta is saying is true, and I will put forth effort to appreciate whatever is said in Shastra. I might not know it right now. Aham Brahmasmi Mahavakya. Shanti mantra we chant, Kena Upanishad. Upanishad say that everything is Brahma, everything is consciousness. I don't appreciate it yet, but let me start with Shraddha. From that he says, get this milk which is Dharma. Milk which is Dharma, and heat it up with desirelessness. The fire of desirelessness should be there, that this alone is my goal, not anything else. He says, heat up that milk. Then cool it down with contentment. With the wind of contentment, cool down that milk. Don't again go after things in the world. After several janmas, we are on this path, seeking this final flame. Once that milk is cooled, he says, put the culture of control of the mind to make yogurt. Like this, there are several steps he points out. Finally, he says, you will get this knowledge in the form of that ghee. That knowledge in the form of ghee. In between, you'll have to do churning also. Means you have to do vichara of Mahavakya. Those words which are there, churn them. Then you'll get this ghee. Pour that ghee in your mind. Pour that ghee in the mind. And then you have to make a wick now. So he says, take Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. 3 threads of cotton. Put them together and put that 3 gunas in that wick. And this Brahmakara Vritti is that flame. Soham iti Vritti Akhanda. Saha Aham Asmi. That absolute truth I am, this Vritti, this is that Akhandakara Vritti. Soham iti Vritti Akhanda. Akhanda word is also there. Deepa Sikha soi Parama Prachanda. That Deepa Sikha, this flame which is there, that will burn this knot of ignorance. Same teaching, but in a metaphorical way. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. I know there will be several questions on these parts. If you have a chance, please to take a look again, and you can always type it in the chat. There are some here that I see. Why is the word akara used in Brahmakara Vritti? For Ghatakara Vritti, akara is understood because it has a form. That is true. So here also it is said akara because it is just taking the form of that entity. Not physical form, but it is taking akara of Brahma. This actually is going to be one Purva Paksha. I didn't cover that today. This Purva Paksha is going to say, how come Vritti took akara of Brahma? Because you say Brahma is infinite. So how come Vritti has taken akara of Brahma? So that we'll see whenever it comes. But the word akara over here is just to appreciate that it's a Vritti, first of all. It is not some mystic thing. Just like you have other Vrittis, there is Brahmakara Vritti also. So akara, you can say, it is the Lakshana of Brahma, indicator of Brahma. You know what will be the problem if you say it is Brahma akara? Because Brahma has no akara. Right? How can that Vritti indicate that Brahma which has akara? So akara word is only to indicate that it is a Vritti, first of all, and it will remove all the conditionings which are there on that Brahma. Okay, so the object of Brahmakara Vritti is Brahma. That is why. All right. Hari Om, everyone.